Good morning.
Sorry, I was trying to like harmonize it, you know? I was just trying to make it like musical.
All right, welcome to the Breakfast Show on Faith FM with Skafy and Lawson. This is the best place to start your day with positive and uplifting thoughts. You're listening across Australia on 87.6, 87.8, or 88, depending on where you are. And I have here Lawson, the harmonizing Walters.
Dude,
and
I'm just in a harmonizing mood, bro. I'm in a musical space right now. You know, just make it happen. I've been really blessed while we've been here at Big Camp, hearing all the amazing, amazing music. I'm super grateful for it.
Are you playing this year, anything?
No, I'm not playing. I've just been, and that's why I'm grateful.
You're just enjoying it.
Because usually I'm just making a racket out there. Yeah. But I've been listening to really awesome music. In fact, I'll tell you the best music that I'm listening to at the moment. So in the tent beside me, we're all here in tents, like thousands of people in tents. In the tent beside me is a guy who is like a pro accordion player. Do you know what an accordion is?
Yeah. Well, this is a very hard instrument to play.
Dude, I'm like enamored by his playing. He's like playing hymns and all this stuff. And I've literally, listening to him, I'm like obsessed with the accordion now. I'm like looking up videos and tutorials. I'm like on Facebook Marketplace. Look, Shannon, this one's only $200. That could be me. I could be the accordion guy. Like, I'm obsessed with it.
I think that an accordion would suit you a lot, Lawson. You kind of have the vibes of an accordion player.
I do?
Too. Yeah.
What, dude, that is like the greatest compliment you've ever given me.
Yeah, you know what? But you know what? It's a very difficult instrument. You need to be able to coordinate so many moving parts. Like there is, blowing. There is the.
You're not blowing. You're just moving it back and forth.
There's moving back and forth. Some of them have blowing as well, though.
Yeah, no. But a mainstream accordion.
There's buttons.
So yeah, on one side you've got a piano, and on the other side you have buttons that have all the chords. The hardest thing, like getting like used to the bellows, like moving it in and out, and the wind pushing it through the reeds and all that kind of stuff seems hard. But the other thing that they all say makes it, because actually, if you played the accordion flat on the ground, you press a button, it plays a chord for you. You don't have to do any chords. That's awesome.
Wow.
But the accordion is turned away from you, so you can't see any of the buttons. So you just gotta like muscle memory learn where, and especially like the accordion that this guy is playing in the thing beside me. One side you've got your piano, which you can pretty well figure out. The other side has 120 buttons. So it's 120 of these buttons that are just like lined up in rows that play all the chords, and you've just got to be super cracked and learn how to, work out where all those buttons are.
Plus you're getting like a bicep workout as well.
Yeah.
As if
100%.
As if you haven't done enough yet.
So this is the thing, is that I'm going to take on the accordion, and then you watch me do like 10,000 push-ups after that. It'll be
you know
awesome.
what? Accordion is such a popular instrument in Brazil.
Really?
Yeah, very, very popular. Way more than here. That's why I grew up listening to a bunch of accordion songs. So that's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm getting that this is your gratitude for today.
That is my gratitude. What are you grateful for?
My gratitude is just being at camp and being able to catch up with friends that you haven't seen in a long time.
100%.
So yesterday, if you're listening to the show today, if you listened to the show yesterday, you noticed that we had Dr. Eric Walsh sitting here with us and sharing some incredible things. Like what a brain this man has. It's really amazing. And we invited him and his wife over for dinner. We had my wife cooked us an amazing Brazilian black bean stew for us, and we just like chatting and catching up. It was really, really nice time.
Awesome
stuff.
I'm
just so grateful.
Oh man, and I'm excited for what's going to come up in our show today. We've got amazing topics, interviews. We're going to be becoming more like Jesus in our next segment.
Yeah, we actually have a very interesting story, super interesting story today from the Old Testament. One story that, I don't think I have ever heard anyone preaching about it. This is actually something that makes me excited. I love when we can talk about something that nobody's talking about, but it has been there in the Bible for thousands of years.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Joined by myself, Lawson. You got Skafy in the studio, producer Shell getting it done, and right now a quiz question, please, producer Shell.
Let's jump into it. Hey, so our first quiz question of today is: how many women have books of the Bible named after them?
Oh.
How many women have books of the Bible named after them? This is going to be a speed one for Skafy and Lawson, I think. But for the rest of you, you can text us in on 0491-064-669. Lawson has it correct. Well done. Skafy, no, unfortunately. So 0491-064-669 is the text line. How many women have books of the Bible named after them?
All right. Yeah, I forgot about how many.
You're about to say.
Not gonna say. I'm gonna hold myself here, and I'm gonna resist the urge and the temptation to give away the answer.
Hey, shout out women. You know, actually, I was blessed. I got a free hat from the women's ministries group, the women's ministries tent. They gave me a hat. I did a gopher run down to Newcastle and back and picked up a bunch of, poles and stuff for those guys, and they gave me a free hat. So shout out women. We wouldn't be here without them. I mean, we also wouldn't be here without men.
You have to go back to Newcastle.
Yeah. I had some other stuff to do there. I had some, like a personal thing to do there, but it turned into a gopher run where it was so funny. Like, I was just coming back in an empty car because all our stuff was already up here. And bro, when I drove back, literally piled to the roof of because a lot of, the people based up that are setting up tents and running things here are based down in Newcastle. And so
a lot of people knew that you were going. They forgot stuff and said, hey, Lawson, can you bring this? Can you bring that?
Dude, I'm getting calls at 9 p.m. at night on the freeway on my way down to Newcastle. Oh, when you come back tomorrow, please grab this. Da, 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 da. So it's pretty funny. But hey, shout out women. Shout out the people who have books named after them. I was really close to giving away the answer there. But, and also shout out Jesus. How can we become more like him today, Skafy?
Look, we'll find out because we're going to be reading a quite unique story. Actually, it's a very weird story, to be honest, in the book of 1 Kings. This story follows straight after what we have been reading, straight after the story of Elijah finding Elisha, and they're going together to minister. And there is this chapter 20, in 1 Kings chapter 20, that appears to be a parenthesis. It appears to be a story of how the politics of these times worked. And Elisha is not there, Elijah is not there, but King Ahab is there.
Okay.
And God is there as well. So we're going to read that story and see what we can find out about it. So this is one that's going to be a little bit challenging, I think, because it's not the traditional story that we are used to read. But let's read it. I studied that passage, so all of the obscure bits and pieces will become clear. And let's see where God will lead us. How about that?
Exciting. All right. I'm in 1 Kings chapter 20, reading now from verse 1. The Bible says, Now Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, gathered all his forces together. 32 kings were with him, with horses and chariots, and he went up and besieged Samaria and waged war against it.
Then, just to
pump the brakes a little bit.
So Ben-Hadad was a big bully king. So he was the bully of the time. He had 32 vassal kings that were under his orders. Yeah. He said, hey, I want you to come to war with me. And then they besieged Samaria, which Samaria was the capital of the northern state of Israel. At the time, Israel was divided in two. There's the northern kingdom, a.k.a. the kingdom of Israel. And then there's southern kingdom called Judah. And the king of the northern kingdom, this is where Elijah was ministering to, was that guy named Ahab. Ahab was this wicked king and married to Jezebel. And his city was besieged by Ben-Hadad. Let's see how, what's the character of that man.
Then he sent messages to the city of Ahab of Israel and said to him, Thus says Ben-Hadad, your silver and your gold are mine. Your loveliest wives and children are mine. And the king of Israel answered and said, My lord, O king, just as you say, I and all that I have are yours.
Yeah, so the king comes and says, hey, just so you know, everything that you have is mine, King Ahab. All your gold, all your silver, your most beautiful wives, even your children. And King Ahab says, okay, it's yours.
Yeah.
Which makes me think, what kind of relationship did he have with his wives that he said, oh, yeah, actually, great, you can take them.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is the situation. It's obviously Ahab is capitulating
Yeah.
here.
And so, look, some people said, look, this is him saying, yeah, okay, we are all your servants. So some people say, oh, he's not necessarily wanting to take physically his children and his wives, but he's basically saying, look, everything that you have is mine. You're my servant, and everything that I say you have to do.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so that was it. So King Ahab, we don't know much details about that story. Why he was just so subservient. Maybe he was afraid of getting into war with Ben-Hadad. Maybe he had already lost some battles for Ben-Hadad. So Ben-Hadad just says this. He surrounds the city, and King Ahab says, "Yep, my king. Look, it's kind of like my dog. My dog, I have a sausage dog. His name is Cashew, and if I say to sausage dog, if I look at him with my eyes and I say, automatically, you know what happens?
What?
My dog just flips his belly up and saying, okay, I surrender, whatever.
Really?
Yeah. I don't want any trouble here, because he knows that if the means that, hey, you're doing something wrong, something that I don't want. And Ahab just did this belly flip for King Ben-Hadad. Just very, okay, King, I'm not even going to fight with you. But then let's see.
So funny. Are you sure your dog doesn't just have fleas and is looking for any reason
no
to
fleas,
get a scratch?
No fleas. He's just a very submissive dog.
Okay, there you go. Shout out Cashew. All right, picking things up then in verse 5, it says, and the messengers came back and says, thus speaks Ben-Hadad, saying, indeed, I have sent to you, saying, you shall deliver to me your silver and gold and your wives and children. But I will send my servants to you tomorrow about this time, and they shall reach your house and the houses of your servants. And it shall be that whatever is pleasant in your eyes, they will put it in their hands and take it.
Yeah, so not only I'm going to charge you tributes, and I'm only going to charge you gold and silver, but since you're being so docile with me, you know what? Tomorrow my servants will come and they're going to ransack all of your properties, all of your houses, not only yours, but also your elders. And anything that you think it's nice, they're going to carry it with them back.
Wow.
So, Lawson, what do you think about the character of this guy?
Oh, he's just taking whatever he can get. Like this guy is obviously powerful, and it's he knows he's powerful, and he's taking every advantage he can from being powerful to lord it over others.
Have you met people like that in real life?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I feel like I hang out with mostly pretty cool people. Like this more takes me back to being a kid, if anything. Like this is. But I don't know.
Did you have a bully at school that would, ransack your school lunch or something like that?
I mean, sure. Like everyone, everyone's kind of been through that a little bit, like some naughty kids. I would say, because I would say that I've since I was 18, I've only really been working, in churches and Christian organizations, and for most of that, I've been privileged to work with some really good people. Except, when I came on Faith FM and. That was a joke. That was a joke. That was a prank. That was a joke. But I'd say probably in your past, Skafy, working in the finance world, you would see that massively.
Yeah,
right?
look, I don't know. Look, nothing that dramatic. But I'll tell you, in Portuguese, we have in Brazil, we have this saying. It says that there are some people that when you offer your hand, they want to take your arm.
Sure.
They're basically really abusing of your... hospitality, your generosity, your willingness,
If we reframe like that, I can think of quite a few instances of that happening, right? Because I'm just thinking from some super rich and powerful person, but I'm also thinking from the other perspective of people that you try to be generous to that are incredibly ungrateful and respond.
And they're takers, and then if you don't give what they want, they are going to, they feel very resentful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so avoid these people. These are the Ben-Hadads.
Yeah.
But Ben-Hadad is that on steroids. Ben-Hadad is one of these people, but then you give them powers and chariots and foot soldiers, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
So let's see what's going to be Ahab's response to that, verse 7.
In verse 7, it says, so the king of Israel called all the elders of the land and said, notice, please, and see how this man seeks trouble. For he sent to me for my wives, my children, my silver, and my gold. And I did not deny him. And all the elders and all the people said to him, do not listen or consent. Therefore he said to the messengers of Ben-Hadad, tell my lord the king, all that you said for to your servant the first time I will do. But this I cannot do. And the messengers departed and brought back word to him. Then Ben-Hadad sent to him and said, the gods do so to me, and more also, if enough dust is left of Samaria for a handful of each of the people who follow me.
Keep going, verse 11 and 12. And then we'll talk about the big.
So the king of Israel answered and said, "Tell him, let not the one who puts on his armor boast like the one who takes it off." That is
epic, right?
That is a banger line. That's so cool. Verse 12 here. And it happened when Ben-Hadad heard this message, as he and the kings were drinking at the command post, that he said to his servants, "Get ready." And they got ready to attack the city.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about what happened here. So Ahab came to his council of elders and says, "Hey, gentlemen, this is the situation here. This guy wants trouble. You know, he actually wants an excuse to go to war. I'm trying to resolve this through diplomacy. It's not working. What should I do?" And then the other they said, "Hey, don't do any of that. Don't listen. Don't consent." Yeah. And then Ahab responded. What do you think about Ahab's response to the king, to King Ben-Hadad?
Well, at first he says, "Hey, you can have the first, but you can't have the second."
Yeah, but he said it in such a diplomatic way. He was trying to be as gentle as possible. Said, "My lord, the king, your servant will do everything you said at first. Just this thing I cannot do."
Yeah.
And then Ben-Hadad, how was his response? He's the bully of bullies. He says, "Oh, really? Okay, so we'll see what's going to happen here."
Yeah, basically he says, "We're going to turn you into dust."
Curse. Yeah, that's right. They say, "Look, I'm going to come into your city with so many soldiers. There's not going to be enough dust in your city for that each one who carry a handful of them."
Yeah.
Just like, "I'm going to invade you with overwhelming force."
Yeah. Oh, dude. And then Ahab's answer here is a line and a half. "Let not one who puts on his armor boast like one who takes it off."
Interpret that one for us. What is he saying?
He's essentially saying, until you win, there is no boasting, right? Yeah. Until you take off your armor,
that's right.
You can't boast.
Don't sing victory before it's over.
That's right. Yeah. Oh man, that's a banger. I'm gonna lift that from the text. Yeah, that's awesome.
He's growing some backbones here, I think, with that answer. Yeah. He's definitely growing some backbones. And then Ben-Hadad says, "You know what? Okay,
get ready."
Yeah, get ready. He gets, but then there's a detail here. The detail is that he's drunk. He's drunk. He's drinking with the kings that were his vassals. So what we will see is that anytime that the wine is involved in the Bible, is always in a negative sense.
Sure, 100%.
And we will see here that because of that, Ben-Hadad is actually going to make some really dumb military decisions.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the next verse here, verse 13.
Suddenly a prophet approached Ahab, king of Israel, saying, "Thus says the Lord, have you seen all this great multitude? Behold, I will deliver it into your hand, and you shall know that I am the Lord." So Ahab said, "By whom?" And he said, "Thus says the Lord, by the young leaders of the provinces." Then he said, "Who will set the battle in order?" And he said, "You." Then he mustered the 2 young leaders of the provinces.
It says 2 young leaders?
No, sorry. It says, then he mustered the young leaders of the provinces, sorry. And there were 32. There were 232. And after them he mustered all the people, all the children of Israel, 7,000. So they went out at noon. Meanwhile, Ben-Hadad and the 32 kings helping him were getting drunk at the command post.
Yeah, just pause here for a second, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we're getting to the more like him territory now.
Sure.
Because we're seeing here, man, how patient was God with Ahab, one of the most wicked king ever. And God still has the patience to send him a prophet and to give him some good news.
Yeah. To essentially,
I'm going to help you.
God is going to help him achieve victory.
Yeah. And I actually have to say, look, this is actually weird. I think we're seeing Ahab at one of his best chapters, to be honest. I think we're seeing really good things about about Ahab. Even though Ahab is not a model generally to be followed.
Yeah.
He's a very weak man, we see. But in this chapter, perhaps maybe this is why this chapter is here. Because even sometimes weak men can have their moment of strength. And I think this is a moment of strength for Ahab. Both sort of a human strength, but also spiritual strength here. Because, the first thing we have seen is that, he's being very diplomatic and he was trying to avoid unnecessary conflict, but then he's also consulting with his people. He's, taking a stand. So that's like the human side of things. But now he's actually believing the word of the prophet.
Yeah.
Because Ahab doesn't really have a great track record of, enjoying what prophets had to say to him. Remember like when Elijah tells him that, hey, there's not going to be any rain, any dew for 3.5 years. He didn't like it at all. But this time, this prophet comes and he says, hey, God is going to deliver you. And the first question that Ahab asked was, by whom? I love that question. It's actually a question of faith. It's okay. Yeah. He's not saying, he's not doubting that's going to happen. He's just asking, okay, but who's going to do this?
Yeah, yeah.
And he got a straight answer from that.
Yeah.
You know, the young people from the provinces. It says young leaders in your translation. In Hebrew, it's the young man. The young man was a technical term for like the boys, boys, like the military boys.
Yeah, okay.
You know, from the provinces, and they were like 232 of them. But also, I also liked how King asked, okay, who's going to organize the battle? Who's going to make it happen?
Yeah.
And the prophet says, you.
You're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
So essentially it's, God saying, hey, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you put together your strategy here. I'm going to help you do all these things. I'm going to put you in the position of leadership over this, and what your hand touches, it'll prosper. Yeah. It'll happen.
And you know what? Let me tell you this. I think we're definitely entering into more like him territory now.
Sure.
Because this is what I'm getting here for my life, Lawson. When oftentimes we ask God for things, right? We ask God, can you help me do this? But every time that we normally pray to God, we are thinking that God is going to help me and empower me to do that I'm asking God to do. But Ahab is actually starting to inspire me to ask, okay, God, who can actually help me to fulfill that thing that I'm praying for? Let's say that you are praying, you're in your church, and you're a church leader, and you're praying that you want to reach out to your community somehow. Ask this question, by whom? To God. Because God is probably going to say, what about the young people in your church? And then God can ask, okay, but who's going to organize all this? And then God says, you. So I think that this is a message for leaders here. And, you know, you are a leader in your local church. You know, you're an elder, you're a pastor there.
Yeah.
And I think that what we can learn here is that a lot of the dreams that you have for your church to serve your community, instead of you doing it, God is calling you, your young people will be doing it. And you're going to be the orchestrator of that.
Yeah.
This is going to be your job.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Just before we get into our quiz, no, Skafy, look right there. Dude, we are seriously living a camp experience. No. Bring your eyes back just above this microphone here and a little bit to the right. There's a spider flying down from the roof. There's a spider webbing down from the roof. Can you see that?
I can, yeah.
Dude, we are, like, it's right beside Skafy.
Yeah.
Look.
Yeah. It's a funnel web spider, but nothing to fear here.
It is not.
Dude.
Sorry, I don't know my spiders very well. Look at that one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, now she's climbing up.
It's floating. We are literally living a camp life here. You know, we are in and amongst the wildlife. Now, producer Shell, we need a quiz answer.
Quiz answer for us from the first quiz question that we did. How many women have books of the Bible named after them? What's the answer?
Two.
Esther and Ruth.
Esther and Ruth,
yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. All right, our next quiz question. This is going to be a hard one for the day, so get your thinking caps on.
Okay, they're on.
It is time. What verb is used the most in the King James Version of the Bible? Probably in all of the Bibles, but what verb is used the most?
Wow.
And I'm going to let you know right now that it's a modal auxiliary verb, which means that it's a helper of a verb, which means that it can never be in a sentence on its own, like the only verb. It's always in front of another verb.
Okay.
So it's a word that can't sit on its own. So it's not a verb like sit.
I was gonna say this one.
No, but that one could be in a sentence on its own without a helper.
That's right.
So this is a helper verb. In fact, you might not even know that it is a verb, but it is a verb. It's a helper verb.
Am I close?
No. Well, the first letter is right.
Well, what is the first letter? Give me that tip. Give me that. I need a hint. This is so hard.
Yeah, I'll give you the hint. It's an S.
Oh, it's an S.
I bet you write the same thing as me.
I think Skafy might he's just like had a aha moment in
bet he
his
writes
head.
the same thing as me.
I'll give the phone number while you are contemplating your answer. 0491-064-669. So this is a helper verb that is used so much in the Bible.
Probably wrong.
It's not correct, unfortunately.
I don't know. This is a great question. I noticed that you've been into some statistics of grammar in the Bible.
I've been going down a bit of a trail lately, I guess.
Yeah. I'm loving it. I mean, this is so hard, but I'm
having a very specific problem with this question, and that is that I don't read the King James Bible.
You're going to know this. You still use this word.
Oh.
It's not a
just in most Bibles, it's probably
word.
True.
Yeah, in most, but I know for sure.
Really? Then why don't I know it? Do I not read the Bible enough? Is this
we just don't think about helper verbs.
No.
Because we're not talking about a word like walk or sit or those kind of things. Because those can be used in a sentence on their own.
Look, I'm really looking forward to find out.
No, that's not a verb in any way. I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just going through verses that I've like memorized, and I'm like, okay, words starting with S in that verse, I'm writing it down.
5 letters. Okay, I'm really giving it away now.
Okay.
5 letters.
Okay, Skafy, you talk so I can think about all my verses. Okay. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten.
I can give you like one ultimate clue.
Okay, ultimate clue. Come on, just one.
So this is like a total giveaway.
Okay, giveaway.
It's my name, but with the vowel changed.
That's so stupid. Why did you say that? I was on my way to get it. That's like,
I was not gonna get it.
Yeah, I
was not gonna get it.
Okay.
But now it makes a lot of sense. So if you do know the answer now, that producer Shah was very generous with her quiz.
But we're learning something here.
Yeah,
today.
that is so cool. I never thought about that one.
I was about to get into the 10 Commandments, and that would have given me the answer.
Of course you would, Lawson.
Yeah.
We all know you would.
Yeah.
So 0491 064 669.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right, we are in this story. Yeah. We are looking at Ahab. We're looking at this battle, this war. First Kings chapter 20.
This is what I'm learning with Jesus to be more like him. Jesus did things through others.
Sure.
He did things through his disciples, and he was looking forward to. When we read the story of Jesus, we see that very early on, he was sending his disciples to baptize others. He was sending his disciples to go to the villages, to announce that the kingdom of God is near, to heal the sick, and to cast out the demons. So, and I think that for people like myself, for example, Lawson, I am a bit of a one-man band kind of a mentality. I want to do everything. And this is not a good thing, not for a leader. A leader is supposed to be mobilizing other people so that others can also have the joy of getting to ministry. But a lot of ministry-minded people tend to do all the ministry by their own. I'll give you a shocking statistic here. 80% of the work in a church is done by 20% of the people.
Yeah.
And this should not be the case at all. This is called the Pareto principle, and it's true in so many areas. And what God is teaching Ahab here is to ask the right question. God, by whom we are going to accomplish this? And God is going to say, hey, by the young people, by those who are who are typically you would not involve. And the next phrase is, who's going to orchestrate this? And then God says you. So God is calling Abraham, hey, you be a leader now. You're going to mobilize people. You're going to orchestrate. You're going to call them up. You're going to facilitate it. But they are the ones going to do the work. And I think that for church leaders, this is an incredible principle. Stop doing the work of ministry yourself all the time. But start asking God, by whom am I going to accomplish that which you are giving to me, Lord, so that I can orchestrate?
Absolutely. Now, this is wonderful. You know what I'm thinking here, because like Ahab has consistently been on a path of wrong, and now God's helping him. Do you think by this help, God is trying to entice him to like repent of his sins? Because we haven't seen that happen yet.
No, we haven't. I think that God is giving chance after chance after chance, and this is how God is. He gives chances to everyone, in even some of the most ungrateful of people. And he's showing to Ahab here, God is being so gracious to him. He's not rubbing in Ahab's face any of his sins. No, he's just saying, hey, I'm just here to help you so that you know that I am still the God of this country. And we'll see here how's that going to play out now. Let's read verse 16, Lawson, please.
Now, verse 16 says, so when they went out at noon, meanwhile, Ben-Hadad and the 32 kings helping him are getting drunk at the command post. The young leaders of the provinces went out first, and Ben-Hadad sent out a patrol, and they told him, saying, men are coming out of Samaria. So he said, if they have come out for peace, then take them alive. If they have come out for war, take them alive.
That's right. So you can see can you see the effects of the alcohol already taking place in Ben-Hadad's mind? Do you think this is a sensible military tactic?
So taking them alive if they've come out for peace is a relatively wise thing to do, because, and this is often how wars happen. Like they didn't have, radio communication or anything like that. And so before wars happened, there was kind of a state of peace where each force would line up in the valley or whatever it may be, or on the plain, and they would send out, people
their messengers,
to communicate. That kind of thing. These young men could have been coming as some kind of tribute or offering or something like that but I think his downfall is saying if they've come for war, take them alive. Because essentially what he's saying is these young men pose absolutely no threat to us. Therefore, we could just bring them to the camp. Just bring them straight in. Just let them waltz in here. We'll take them alive. No issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as well.
So if they're coming here to wage war with you, just bring them alive.
Even, and as well, like if you capture, like let's say they get captured, right? It's like take them alive. So let's say they get captured. I don't know what the next step in the story is, or I'm not going to assume what the next step of the story is. But let's say they're taken captured. That can really arouse the sense of, the people back in Israel, like their need to step up and fight. And he's saying, any arousal or inspiration to fight for Israel doesn't matter either. Like, it just doesn't matter. However much they want to fight us, it doesn't matter. We're going to win.
He's definitely being very arrogant here. And I would say that, this is a classic example of drunk people when your senses are gone and your courage is up.
Yeah.
So, just going to be easy. Just take them, whatever. But it's not going to work well for them. And let's see what happened. Verse 19, verse 20. They killed each his man, and the Arameans fled, and Israel pursued them. And Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, escaped on a horse with a horseman. So these young men coming from Israel, from Samaria, they absolutely destroyed Ben-Hadad's soldiers. Ben-Hadad, they were taken because they were not prepared. They were all drunk, so they were taken by a scare, and they all fled.
Yeah,
that's 100%. What happened. These 232 boys, they drove away an entire organized army.
Yeah. I can imagine, they're walking out and these drunk guys come up to them and they're like, hey, war or peace? And the 232 boys just war. And then just kill them, just get them. They're completely overwhelmed here because of their lack of preparation. And as a result, they all fled. There's a slaughter, but simultaneously, Ben-Hadad, he is out of there. Yeah,
he escaped on a horse with a horseman, and then the king of Israel went out and struck the horses and chariots and killed the Arameans with a great slaughter. So the army that was waiting behind, they came in and they just had this incredible victory. Verse 22.
Verse 22, the Bible says, and the prophet came to the king of Israel and said, go strengthen yourself, take note, and see what you should do. For in the spring of the year, the king of Syria will come against you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's pause here for just a second. I think there's a couple of spiritual applications here. One, this is another story of, how Jonathan, when him and his armor bearer, they climbed up this ravine, and they ended up killing a bunch of Philistines in the book of Samuel. And then Jonathan says, God is able to deliver by the hands of few or many. So I think this is another one of these stories, because particularly I'm talking here, there's a lot of churches around there. Maybe they have like 20 people, 30 people, 5 people. We were talking about the testimony of Adam earlier. Sorry, we're going to have it on air at some point here. And he went to a church where there was like 5 people, all of them above 80.
Wow.
And that church now is boasting, I think, 30 people or so. And they had, like, in 1 year, 12 people joined that church through baptism, and families and people, because they were praying, they're trusting in God. So God is able to, when God places a dream, a vision of righteousness into the heart of a leader, when that leader is then mobilizing and using the rest of the church that is at their disposal for spiritual things, so to speak, they're young people, and they're orchestrating that, the results that come from that are going to be disproportionate to the amount of resources the church has. Why? Because the hand of God is blessing. So just because you might be part of a very tiny, little, small church, well, you can punch way above your weight, spiritually speaking, when you are following God's instructions. And I think this is a big encouragement. Like, we don't need to have like a massive army to cause damage to the kingdom of Satan. We can do that with very few people relatively. But when we're working together and in harmony. So that's one thing. Then the second thing that I find here, Lawson, in this passage is that always be ready. Because sometimes you go through a big battle and you finish it up. And we kind of like get there and you kind of breathe in and it's like, oh, wow, we've done it. But then God wants us to be ready for the next one.
Yeah.
Have that ever happened to you? Like, have you been through like a very difficult circumstance and then you're stopping to catch your breath and then all of a sudden there's something else, another crisis that comes to
I feel like,
this is your story of your life.
Yeah, this is every day for me. But more so, this is reminding me specifically of what we've just seen in the life of Elijah. I think we see the battle on Mount Carmel, followed very quickly, which is this big spiritual, and literal battle that he wins, followed by immediately, running, checking the cloud and running down the hill. And so we've got like difficulty after difficulty following one another. And he's finding success, but it's still hard and it's still difficulty. Following one another in quick and rapid succession. And it's wearing him down. And the next difficulty comes, which is, Elijah, there's a hit out on your life from Queen Jezebel. And I think just the rapid succession of all of these really hectic things happening, it just ultimately
overwhelmed him.
It overwhelms him, and especially like in that moment, the moment when he hears his the death sentence against him. He's just run down the hill in the rain and he's cold and wet and naked not naked actually, he's just cold and wet and hungry and just unprepared. He's just in a moment of, he's not in it like warm and around the fire and settled, and no, he's cold and he's wet and he's hungry, and he gets hit with another challenge and he's at his end.
He was not ready for it. He was not prepared for it.
Yeah,
spiritually. And I think that for us is spiritual. And the thing as well is that I find interesting is that God says, look, go with what you have.
Yeah.
Oh God, how are you going to do this? This is a big project. Well, start it with what you have. But after that, go and strengthen yourself and prepare and plan.
Yeah.
Because there's not such a thing. Because King Ahab can say, you know what? I don't need to do any preparations. God is going to help us the next time around when this king comes back. And a lot of Christians, I think they neglect that preparation part of things, that planning part of things. They're always kind of accounting on the miracles of God.
Sure.
And there's a balance here. Yes, on one hand, you don't need to wait until you have the perfect situations to act. But once you actually do have some time to prepare, God does expect us to prepare.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're seeing here is the grace of God and stepping in our moments of need, but also God is wanting to grow us in our character as well, teaching us how to prepare, teaching us how to draw close to Him and live a life with Him. Hey, producer Shell, what are we looking at?
Quiz answer for us. The word that we were after was shall. Shall is the most used verb in the Bible.
I started going, if I got to the If I got to the Old Testament, I would have worked it out because thou shalt.
If I read the old King James as my standard Bible, I would probably know. But in the New American Standard Bible, we barely ever see the word shall. I think it's different.
Excuses.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.